Hello there. Thank you for looking at this. My name is Luke, and I'm going to go over what I learned in clinical psych. Wow. So, just to reflect on a few things. Um, it's a good class. I liked it a lot. You kind of are taught the importance of understanding the wider details of psychology and how it's adapting, the changes that are being made throughout time, how it's improving. Um, it was eye opening, and it was a good experience. I'm just glad I took it. So, uh, fun class, cool. Let's get into the boring stuff. So, um, for the projects that I did, I'll start with this one. This is fact versus myth about autism, using Abed Nadir as an example from the NBC show Community. Um, so autism in general is like a really passionate subject for me. I have a couple friends and even my partner who has it. Um, After doing like oodles and oodles of research for it, it's become kind of an interesting topic. Um, there's a lot of myths, a lot of facts that kind of go along with it, a lot of misinformation, and this was a nice kind of place where I can just um, kind of cut out the lies, cut in the truth, that sort of thing. Um, and Community in general is a great representation of uh, autism because while Abed is a savant and things are a bit exaggerated for television. It's still a good representation. Social cues are not a thing he's good with, nor his facial expressions. But hey, it's cool. So that's why I did that for that project. The second project I did was for the controversial therapies. There's a bunch of them we could choose from. There are three. The one I picked was the scared straight stuff, and this interested me the most because conversion camps always seemed like something that just didn't make sense to me. They're heavily made fun of in television shows, so I didn't know if there was any grounds for that. But it did turn out, after researching this for a bit, that this negative affirmation, this scared straight mentality, works for the short term. Um, but it's really not good for the long term because in the long term you're going to have kids that grow up uh, having just terrible times expressing themselves because all they've ever known is negative affirmation and punishment. And there is a difference between discipline and punishment. The difference is that punishment is strictly just negative stuff. Discipline in general, however, should always have a positive connotation to it, especially when speaking to a younger child, because that amount of stress on a child can hinder their development. So that's why I did that one. The next one I did was looking at abnormal disorders in fictional characters. Um, this time I did BoJack Horseman, from BoJack Horseman. Now the thing about BoJack is that I got to talk about depression. Um, this is something he suffers from throughout the entire show. I got to apply all of the models to his behavior, the humanistic model, the behavioral, the biological, and the psychoanalytic. And throughout all of his childhood trauma, he's had close ties with depression. You know, he's a very depressing character. That's his entire trait. Um, there's also great representation of mental illness in this show in general, also, because the thing about it is BoJack isn't just the only character with a mental disorder. There are characters with depression. There's characters with narcissism. There's characters with imposter syndrome. There's characters with autism. There's tons of stuff in the show, and most of it is really good representation, even though it's a silly show about a horse. So it really gives you a deeper look into depression itself, rather than just a blanket statement of, oh, I'm feeling sad. And of course, it's a fantastic show. So my next one was next one that I did was for OCD. This is the last one. Um, so this one actually, I had a bit of trouble, kind of separating myself from this one because I by no means have OCD. I don't claim to, but the story that I picked um, was interesting because of how closely it ties to myself. So what I mean by that is this spirituality that is tied to OCD in the post that I read. Um, the thing about it is this story that I had to summarize basically and answer a few questions for contains this woman who had such bad OCD and was such a devout Christian that she would go to pray every night, and if her prayers weren't good enough, she would just completely stay up all night praying until it's just perfect. And this would lead to many sleepless nights. And of course, when a disorder starts impairing on your ability to survive and thrive, that's when it becomes a problem. So the reason I say this is relatable is I kind of have similar experience to this. Um, I I myself I had a little atheist phase there, but I still am now Christian. And when I was a child, I had a similar issue. I felt like my prayers weren't good enough for God, and that's part of the reason why I kind of picked this, because it kind of reminded me of myself. So to conclude, what are the main takeaways that you should take away from this project? Psychology is everywhere, and I think we all pretty much know that. But psychology is literally everywhere. It's in your family. It is in your coworkers, your bosses, your friends. Everyone has something going on in their head, whether that be a disorder or just stress or just something in general. Um, Psychology is all over the media. In the shows you watch, 2 of these projects were about fictional characters. Um, and if that doesn't say something, I don't know what. Uh, Change, while not always good, is generally good. You see, the thing about human society and the thing about human psychology is that we are always constantly moving forward, being more and more progressive. The more time goes on, the better we understand not just the things that we've done wrong before, but what we are doing right now. I mean, being gay was in the DSM classified as a disorder up until I think the 80s, which nowadays obviously we know that that is not the case. There's a million things that we have done wrong that we are doing correctly now, and there's still stuff that we're doing wrong, but that's okay, because the entire point of psychology is that we understand it better, and the better we understand it, the better we can treat the people that need the help. Um, so the overarching theme that I want to pull from this presentation is misrepresentation. Uh, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people, they self-diagnose. They don't quite understand disorders. Um, I know for a fact a million people have said, "Oh, I'm depressed," without actually having a chemical imbalance in their brains. Or a million people have said, "I have OCD," when in fact the human brain does gravitate towards patterns, but they've never had a ritual in their entire life that has hindered their ability to perform or just exist. Also, a disorder does not equal failure. Just because you have something that is plaguing your brain, um, it doesn't mean that you can't succeed in life. And, of course, just to end, my personal favorite project, because it's a requirement to tell you what my favorite was, is my man's. Abed Nadir! Look at that brown gentleman, that prince of autism. I love him. Community, if you haven't watched, is a fantastic show. It aired on NBC. The first 5 seasons are good. The 6th one is terrible. But he's a fantastic representation of autism in media, and he's written very respectfully and very subtly. not once in the entire show has it ever been explicitly stated that he is autistic, and that I love it. So thank you for watching, and give me an A. Thank you.